attended every year in Europe. And when we were little, we stayed at home and he and my mother went. My father said the agenda of these meetings was, the first order of business was, what lovely city are we going to go to next year? And as we got older, he took first my sister and I, and then later my two younger brothers, and then eventually, we'd all travel together. But he really loved art. And on one trip to England, they visited Henry Moore's estate where he had his, sculptures all out there. And later in life, he gave himself a gift. He bought a Henry Moore sculpture, sort of a small one, but he had this pedestal built. So when he was sitting in his favorite chair in the living room, reading the New York Times, he would see this piece reflected in the window. And he said, it's to make up for the Picasso that I didn't buy back then.
Now, did his interest in art, did that ever influence you when you were younger, or was something later?
It influenced me. I mean, I loved going, when we went to Paris, I think I was 13, my sister was 11. The polite term would be precocious. I think more accurate term than my sister might use would be obnoxious. My mother and sister and I took the boat over, which, again, I'm so glad I had that experience because it was in the day when people did travel by ship. And it was on the SS United States, which was very proud of being the fastest ship. But, you're still on this ocean liner. There's the feeling of sitting on the deck, covered with a blanket, and again, I was very obnoxious. I was reading War and Peace and having bouillon. But the sense of vastness, once you get out there is nothing. I mean, there is literally nothing. Yeah. So anyway, when we went to London first, we got to Paris, I'm looking at the Michelin Green Guide, and I say to my mother, oh, did you know tonight is the only night while we're here that they're doing the Sauna Luminaire of the Winged Victory at the Louvre? And my sister's like, and my mother's like, oh, David, I'm so glad you saw it. We must go. And my sister was like, so I would get up in the morning. I wanted to be like when they first opened the gate at the Louvre to go in. And I, of course, had my International Herald Tribune under my arm. I was really obnoxious. But at the time, they had the painting of Liberty Leading the People, which is enormous, in this room upstairs. And facing it was another enormous sort of history piece. And I loved just running up to that room and being in that room for like 10 or 15 minutes all by myself. I mean, these were in the days when you could actually walk up to the Mona Lisa and look at it. It was a nice time. It's so funny because I really feel like, but I always loved history paintings. And a number of years ago, I thought about the idea of trying to create some of those using figurines. And the first idea I had was the Night Watch. And I ended up using some Playmobil-type buildings as the background. It actually came out okay. I mean, much to my surprise, given all the toys that are manufactured these days, nobody had made those figures. So I had a friend of mine who has a toy business in Jersey City, right across from where my studio is. He found a guy who could sort of sculpt some similar type, sort of ad hoc, create the figure. I mean, very ad hoc. But I definitely felt that came from my childhood experience.
Make sure that
so many of these pieces from the history series are really come from that. There's one, the one I wanted to show you is of a Géricault painting of a French bazaar. The model is so exactly like the painting. Oh, this is my assistant